Dell OptiPlex 7020 small factory form. I absolutely love this machine and I'm super excited to dive into these. We are finally starting deploying these. The 7010 is pretty much done. That has a 13th generation of Intel CPUs, and these are the 14th generation, the latest and the greatest. We're gonna see what's the difference between a 7010 and a 7020, and this is the 7020 standard, and what's the main difference between the 7020 standard and a standard plus. If you're not familiar with a business class machine, especially with the OptiPlex, if I have to describe them to a non-technical person, I would call them as a Honda or a Toyota, or even better or more reliable than those two. I absolutely love them. I've been using Dell OptiPlex for about 16 years. And if I have to put this computer out on your desk today, I will say see you in 6 to 8 years, as a kind of a joke, but it's actually not a joke. Last week I had to remind one of my clients that, hey, your Dell OptiPlex machine running this machinery in here is actually 12 years old. You really need to find a solution to replace the software and the actual machine at this point. I know they are very reliable, but it's all electronics. Sooner or later, this will be a problem, and Dell has a solution. I absolutely love them. Best part of this PC is definitely how reliable, how simply to work with, how easy to operate the RAM, the CPU, the solid state, and they just own 24/7. I really appreciate them as they are. Before we get into that, I have to tell you that this is a non-sponsored video. We are a small independent shop. I have a freedom to choose any manufacturer, any model, and the only requirement I have is the client has to be happy. The only way to achieve that, if the PC is reliable and has no issues for years to come. So there is no sponsors in here. Actually, you are the sponsor. If you could hit the like and maybe a subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's dive into that. Let's see what's in a box. It's the same thing as a 7010 or anything before. So we have a hardwired mouse and a keyboard. If you buy this machine at Dell.com, then you have an option to opt these out or upgrade to a wireless set. Please do that. Nobody really wants the wired USB mouse and a USB keyboard anymore. We have probably 10, 20, 40, 50 at any given time at the shop. We're collecting them, and unopened they are going to the recycle center. I feel like this is a huge waste. For $20 you can get the wireless set, or a little bit more you can order a Dell wireless set with the machine. You can opt these out. You're gonna get the $5 discount for a mouse and a keyboard if you don't need it. All right, so as you can see, we have the recycled cardboard, which is awesome. We have this plastic bag, so nothing really changed since the 710. And as more we're gonna dive into that, we're more gonna realize that not a whole lot changed. Only two major changes I can pull out of this, or maybe three. So let's remove these, and let me show you the front, because this is a significant change. Which you can see from outside. We have a USB-C port finally in the front. This is a standard model, so every model from now on, the standard or a plus, will have one USB-C. The plus unfortunately only has one. So 7020, you're gonna see a USB-C. How do we know this is not a 7010? I really wish that Dell would not discontinue the actual model in here. The model number should be in here telling us like this is a 7010 or a 7020. So if I pull up a 7010 for you, then you're gonna be able to say like, okay, Scott, I can tell straight from the front panel that this doesn't have a USB-C, because this is a standard. If this would be a standard plus, USB ports, the hardwired network connection, we have a 4K display port and a full HD HDMI. Yeah, I know this is what we're getting. I see some of the negative reviews under the model, either the new one or the older, that people are saying that the HDMI is not 4K, it's only full HD. If you go up to the standard plus, then we're gonna have 3 4K display port on the backside of the machine, and there is also an optional port we can choose from. Same thing in here. For a few dollars you can get a third or a fourth, like these two slot, can have a little daughter board goes onto the motherboard, so we can have I believe 3 display ports and 1 HDMI. The same thing on the Plus. So that is a great machine. This is the actual older model and this is the newer model. So what's the difference? Well, obviously the older model the older model only uses 13th generation of either i3, i5, i7 or i9, while the new generation, the 7020, has the 14th gen CPUs. This is an i5 of 14500. It's great. This is a 13500. What's the other main differences? The older model is DDR4 in a standard. In a standard plus is DDR5. From now on, it doesn't matter if it's standard or standard plus, we're gonna have DDR5. So, and that's pretty much the main difference between the older generation and the newer generation. If you are thinking about, Scott, how much performance are we getting or getting out of the new one versus the old one, I can tell you that it's pretty much barely any. It's measurable, but when I'm running Cinenench or 3D Mark or PCMark or anything like that, Geekbench, the performance difference between the 13th Gen i5 and a 14th Gen i5 is almost negligible, somewhere between 1% to maybe 8 or 9% best case scenario, but most of the time this will gonna be a 3-4%, something like that. So what's the price on these? The new machine is $799. The old machine, you can start getting these with the same specs, 16 gigs of solid state, 250 SSD, 650, which is great. So if you are thinking about you losing something going with the older model, the previous generation of 7010, which has a 13th generation of Intel CPUs in it, you're not losing anything. If there is a bargain out there, just go for it, die for it. If you don't need the USB-C in the front, then you're good. And DDR5, DDR4, when I'm running these tests against the two each others, they are head to head. It's barely any difference. Obviously, with a DDR5 and a 14th gen i5 is a little bit, again, less than 10% faster. So let me move the 7010 out of the way and let's focus on the 7020. So why don't we start taking this apart and see what we have here. So one of my favorite things about these Dell business class machines, how well designed, how easy to take these apart. So in the standard, we have 2 of these screws in the back side. You just have to screw them, they're not gonna fall out or anything, and just pull the back cover off. And we have the case in front of us. Now, if you're not familiar with business class machines, this is going to be the point when you're going to get disappointed and say like, oh, this is a Dell custom-made power supply, this is a Dell custom-made cooling, this is a Dell custom-made bracket. The motherboard is the same thing. It's not an average board. Power connectors are different. It's Dell stuff. Everything is Dell stuff, and a lot of you usually point out that this is a problem. For $800 I can build a significantly better machine. Yes, as a home machine, as a single machine or a couple machine, you can build a better machine, and you can have 5 years of warranty on a motherboard. You can have unlimited warranty on the RAM and the CPU, and the power supply. I'm gonna have maybe 10-year warranty on it, and this is all crap. It's actually not, and it makes a lot of sense that it's all Dell, because if anything happens to this PC, then it's gonna be Dell. I only have to call Dell. I don't have to get another motherboard to start troubleshooting if this is a motherboard issue. I don't have to do a mail-in warranty for Asus and Intel for a CPU, or Kingston for Crucial for a RAM, and the power supply. It's all covered under one umbrella, and these has on-site warranty, 3 years on-site warranty. So if there's anything happening with the PC and it's not software related, they're gonna do a remote diagnostic just to try to figure out what's wrong, and they're gonna send out their technician on their time next business day. I told you this story before. I used to work for an IT company who got a contract from a hospital system to build 400 custom computers, and that almost bankrupted the whole company, just the warranty. Like, everything was great until the RAM started failing, and then the power supply started failing, and then the hospital system just was keep asking to come out and replace the RAM and a power supply. Even a RAM replacement would take like maybe 5 minutes, best case scenario, or worst case scenario. They refused it. They said, we sold this computer with our warranty, so therefore they're not touching it. We have to do it, and just a travel time and the amount of tickets is almost bankrupted the whole entire company. It was a lesson to learn for life, and I cannot be more happy with this. If I go to PC Part Picker and pick something like this with the Windows Pro operating system, 14 Gen i5, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 250 SSD, it's gonna be around $700. You can get this PC for $799 at Dell.com. A couple hours left from the 4th of July sale. Crazy thing, if you select this, doesn't have a Wi-Fi, and usually people point it out, it's because it's a crap and nickel and dime in here. No, it's a business class machine. I have a lot of healthcare related clients. They don't need a Wi-Fi. If this PC would have a Wi-Fi, I would have to disable it or I have to completely remove it for security reasons, just to make sure that this PC will stay on a hardwired network and has no chance to connect by accidentally or by purpose to an unsecure Wi-Fi or somebody's else wireless network. So this is awesome from that perspective. I absolutely love it. But if you somebody who needs a Wi-Fi, click on Wi-Fi. That's gonna raise the price up by $100. This PC will go to from $799 to $899. But here's the crazy thing: if you add a DVD ROM to this, the price will go back to $799. So I don't know, maybe this package is on sale or maybe this is a mistake, but if you need a Wi-Fi, don't hesitate at Dell.com, add the Wi-Fi and then add a DVD-ROM, and that will bring it back to $799, just like the base model without Wi-Fi and without the DVD. So let's take this PC apart and see what we have here, and let's talk about what's the main difference between the standard and a standard plus. So let me get one screwdriver. The other advantage with the business class versus a custom built computer, how easy and how fast we can replace components. So let me remove the front bezel. So we have one 3.5-inch SATA bay in here. We can put a reducer in it, and we can put a SATA drive in it or an SSD. We have the cable and a power cord right here, everything wrapped together, ready to go. This is very nice. If you're looking for two power cord or multiple SATA cables, it's not gonna happen. So Dell will only give you the bare minimum what you need to hit the power button and turn this PC on. So let me remove this in here so I can show you. First of all, I dropped the screw. I would love to get that screw out. This is a one single screw. If this is a standard plus model, we don't even have this single screw holding this bay down. It's a little latch, it's a blue latch. So let me show you how the motherboard looks like in here, and we can talk about features and what's the main difference between the standard and a standard plus. So this is the power supply, the main connector for the circuit board. There is another one in here, and we have a 180 watt bronze power supply. If you go to Dell.com and looking at the specs, it says that the power supply is scalable or upgradable between 180 to 300 platinum. There is no configuration at Dell.com for this OptiPlex where I have the 300 platinum power supply available. Precision workstation small factory form, I see that, but not on the OptiPlex. If Dell is watching this video for any reason, I would ask for a couple things. First of all, I would ask for another USB-C in a back. The other thing that finding annoying is at one point we had the audio out on the backside of the machine, and that got moved to the front. So if you like this clean slate, what we have here, this audio, I know you did this, so if people are using their headphones, people are not using their headphones. I don't have a single client. I'm overseeing about 1,100 computers on a day-to-day operation. I don't have a single user who would use headphones that would plug it in here. It's actually give the machine a cleaner look. I know you're shooting for a cleaner look because you even took the 7010 or 7020 model from here, which you shouldn't. It's really hard to tell now which machine is which one. And Right now it's not a problem, but this machine will be 5-6 years old. If I walk into a new client or an existing client, just by visually I can tell them like this, that, and that needs to be replaced because it's getting old. So front bezel, great. The other thing is the power supply. If we could have in the Plus, the standard Plus, a real 300 watt power supply with an extra cord for a video card, that will be a game changer. Like, you have no idea how many people hitting me up in a comment section asking what kind of power supply can we use or upgrade to be able to have a low profile video card which have an actual power connector on it. It's requiring power. So the problem is with a small factory form is how well can we upgrade this machine. So as you see, we have this custom motherboard. Even a front panel sits on the motherboard, so it is impossible to replace it with a non-Dell component. And the cooling is the same thing, and the power supply is the same thing. So Dell, if you watch this video, please consider to give us a really nice power supply with an additional power cord for a potential video card. You can move more of these units for sure with a little bit of extra. So as you can see, we have DDR5 in here, and we can go up to 64 gigs of RAM with a standard and 128 with a standard plus. That's a lot of RAM. Since we don't have the capability to put anything decent video card in here, I'm not sure. If you're somebody who needs 128 gigs of RAM and unable to put a video card in it, you can put an i9, a 14th generation i9 CPU in here. Please explain like what kind of software you're using. I can't think of anything which would require an i9 CPU, 128 gigs of RAM, and we still have the 180 or a 230 watt power supply, which also does not have that extra connector for the video card. So I'm just really curious. And this is what's the main difference between a standard and a standard plus with the new 7020 line. Well, first of all, with a standard we can have an i3 and an i5. With a standard plus we can have i5, i7, or i9. We can have 64 gigs of RAM with a standard, or we can have 128 with a standard plus. But here's the kicker. So this has 16 gigs of RAM, and we have a single memory stick in here, so it's single channel. If you have a standard plus, you buy 16 gig, there's gonna be two 8 gig stick. If you need 32 gig, they're gonna give you two 16 gig in a plus. In the non-plus or standard, you're gonna get a single stick. I think it's a better deal because you can just throw another stick behind it and double the RAM. So I don't know, dual channel, single channel, what's the difference? I don't know, but we will find out. So I have a plan for this particular PC. I have a GTX 1650, which is probably one of the best option to have for these computers for a low budget. The 3050 would be nice, or a 4060 low profile would be nice, but fortunately we are cornered because we don't have a power supply which would supply the video card with extra power. So there's a lot of video card that's actually got X'd out. Yes, there is some replacement, but that power supply is not cheap, and a lot of people complaining that if we get a decent power supply, which we have to use some kind of adapter or converter to convert the regular power supply connector goes to the motherboard to this particular thing on there, doable, but then is a lot of heat and a lot of noise. So this system is well designed together to work as a unit, as one unit, and that's why it's awesome. So DDR5, I'm gonna throw some RAM in it, and I'm gonna be back with the additional video card, see how it works out, how much space we have, is there any problem with cooling or any issue I'm gonna run into. We're gonna find out. I have a 14th gen i9. The only problem is it's a K CPU, and the manual does not call for a K CPU as a supported. I'm assuming that microcode is not going to be in the BIOS, and a 14th gen i9 where I have the K CPU will be not recognized by the circuit board, but I will throw it in and see what we have here. I'm also really curious to see if the dual channel DDR5 would make a difference in performance, because again, between the same 16 gigs of RAM with the 14 Gen i5, 13 Gen i5, 16 gigs of RAM, the performance difference is negligible. It's almost nothing. It's somewhere between 1 or 2% to 8% best case scenario. So let's see, let's go what else we have here. So let's pull out the RAM. All right, so we have a little solid state in here, and this is a 2230. So the 2230, it's a Western Digital little solid state. It is nice. It's moved the PC to the point when we need it. Standard has one slot, so let me put this out. So the standard has one slot, as you can see in here, and it's either a 2230 or a 2280, and that's pretty much it. And we have one for the Wi-Fi, and there is an optional SD card. So if you need an SD card sitting on a circuit board, you need a Standard Plus. The Standard Plus, I believe, is capable to handle 3 solid state drives, M2 in here. Best part of this PC is how easy to work on this PC. I think the past 16 years, maybe I had to open 2 or 3 tickets with Dell. Why don't we look at the performance while we are talking about, and let's drive through a couple things. So first of all, let's do Cinebench 23, Cinebench 24, Geekbench, PCMark 10, and 3DMark. And 3DMark is the most interesting thing for me, because there is one software I like to run inside of 3DMark. It's called the stress test. It's technically gonna start looping 20 of these benchmarks back to back, and see which one is gonna be the highest score, the highest FPS, and what's gonna be the lowest. And if these numbers are close, it means the performance coming out of this PC very evenly, so it's going to be stable. And this is the only machine which capable to achieve 99.9%. Like, it's literally a flat line. If you watch my previous video, that was about a beautiful Lenovo Yoga a couple of days ago. I could not get a better performance out of that laptop between 80%, low 80s or low 90s best case scenario. That thing never passed the stress test, and this thing is just a flat line in a good way, So I am very, very pleased. If you have any question regards of this particular OptiPlex, please let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next video. Scott's out.